My name's Bruce Thom. I'm chairman of the Australian Coastal Society, and I'll be giving one of the keynote addresses at the Coast to Coast Conference to be held in Adelaide in September. The Coast to Coast Conferences are held every 2 years in a different state and bring together various perspectives that we have around the continent about how best to manage and plan for the coastal values that we treasure so much. It is an opportunity really to express views about the different practices that have evolved in different states and local government level. And in the case of my presentation, it will stress the initiatives that have been undertaken by the Commonwealth Government, particularly through the Department of Climate Change and Energy Efficiency, over the past 12 months. These initiatives have captured, in particular, the risks associated with climate change along our coast and the impacts that those changes will have not only on our environment, but also on our social amenities, our use of the beaches and our waterways, and of course on the economy. The beaches are undergoing right now a lot of dynamic shifts, some of which can be attributed to natural processes, but there are places around the Australian coast where the effects of rising sea levels are already starting to be felt. This is not only on the open ocean coasts, as you can see from this particular image, but also in our estuaries. And in the estuaries, you see the slow but perceptible erosion of deposits that were formed in the past and have now been trimmed back and eroded the old banks of the estuaries with the collapse of the tea trees, as in this particular case, highlighting the sort of inevitable cutting back and expansion of the shorelines as sea level continues to rise. These impacts on natural systems will continue and will be discussed at some detail by many members of the conference. The initiatives that we're looking at also are those associated with risks to population. And we have a lot of low-lying lands around the Australian coast that have been settled. The expectation in settling these low-lying lands is that sea level would not rise. It would stay at its present position. And so infrastructure and property development and commercial enterprises have all been built to that common sea level position that history has given us. But unfortunately, climate change is indicating a continuing rise, perhaps even an accelerating rise in sea level, placing these particular low-lying lands at greater and greater risk of inundation. The inundation, of course, will impact not only as a result of sea level rise, but when you get river floods and storm surges, they will also exacerbate the impacts of the climate change and sea level rise that we are expecting to occur. So the Department of Climate Change has been undertaking a number of assessments of the vulnerability of properties and of infrastructure and of commercial enterprises that exist in Australia. And of course, we have a large amount of our economy dependent upon access to the sea. Through our seaports and our airports, we have an enormous amount of our economic wealth transported and transferred through what in many places now can be deemed to be vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So the Department of Climate Change and Energy Efficiency is undertaking a very responsible task of informing the Australian public, informing local communities, informing businesses and local governments of the risks that we have in this country facing us as a result of climate change. And my talk will try to build on the awareness that we now have of these risks to our environmental assets and to our built assets that Australians with our great love of the coast and living close to the coast, need to understand and be more aware of and need to plan for as these worst case scenarios that we are now expecting more and more start to take effect. Thank you very, very much, and I look forward to seeing you at Coast to Coast 2010 in Adelaide.